I want to welcome in our panel right now as we start off this Wednesday, 3/3/21. We start with our White House correspondent, Emerald Robinson, Republican strategist and attorney Amanda Mackey back with us, political analyst Mark Halperin is here, and Project 21 National Advisory Board member Christopher Arps joining us from the city of St. Louis with the arch there behind you downtown. Good morning to everyone. We got a lot to get into this morning. I'd like to start with Chris Wray, our new FBI director. He was on Capitol Hill yesterday. I'd like to play a soundbite from Mr. Wray talking about domestic terrorism. Take a listen.
I was appalled, like you, at the violence and destruction that we saw that day. I was appalled that you, our country's elected leaders, were victimized right here in these very halls. That attack, that siege, was criminal behavior, plain and simple, and it's behavior that we, the FBI, view as domestic terrorism. It's got no place in our democracy, and tolerating it would make a mockery of our nation's rule of law. The rule of law, of course, is our country's bedrock, and it's our guiding principle at the FBI.
Emerald, we'll start with you. I felt like he was running for political office while I watched him yesterday. I thought the director of the FBI was supposed to be totally nonpartisan.
Well, that's what you thought, but we've seen a couple that are definitely could be accused of being partisan. But look, there was a lot to take away from yesterday. Number one, he said that was domestic terrorism, but he said Antifa. He doesn't consider them domestic terrorists despite $2 billion in damage from violence last year, 25 people dead last year. He had a very different take on what happened over the summer and the response to the George Floyd death. Also, there's so many questions that he just didn't answer, specifically about Officer Brian Sicknick. He said essentially they don't know how he died. But look, Officer Sicknick has been used as the poster child for Democrats, and especially the impeachment effort based on some false reporting about how he died that we now know isn't true. But Ray's saying they don't know. He also didn't confirm whether it was a homicide investigation or not. He also wouldn't provide data on who was arrested, and he didn't give any records to Congress, something that didn't sit well with both Democrats and Republicans. And what really troubled me, though, really bothered, I think, a lot of people, Rob, is the lack of oversight. So Josh Hawley and Mike Lee really lit into him about how they're finding people who were around the Capitol, somewhere in the vicinity. Sounds like they're using geolocation services. And he was asked under what authority. Remember all that FISA abuse that we know about from the Russia investigation. Ray really squirmed under that. He couldn't really give a good answer on how whether it was national security letters or FISA warrants or, other kind of warrants to warrant collecting this data on American citizens.
Yeah, it was abundantly clear. I mean, he admitted to the fact that the FBI was aware that something could go wrong well before the January 6th riots at the Capitol. Mark, I direct the question to you, and Emerald brings up a good point. When David Dorn was killed over the summer by Antifa rioters, you wouldn't see that anywhere but maybe here on Newsmax. Well, certainly here on Newsmax, but that story was brushed right under the rug. Brian Sicknick, this guy, like Emerald said, he's been the poster child for the tragedy that took place on January the 6th. But still, here we are now, almost 2 months to the day removed from those riots, and we have no idea how he died.
Yeah, Director Wray is one of the big high-profile holdovers from the Trump administration. As you know, Rob, the FBI director serves a 10-year term unless they're fired.
Right.
So he carries over from the Trump administration to the Biden administration. I think you saw on pretty vivid display with that testimony his attempt to walk the tightrope. It is not supposed to be a political job, but it is. It has to be, particularly under these very partisan times. And so I think he tried to straddle saying what he knows, holding some stuff back, and being very politically attuned to what members of Congress in both parties and people in the country in both parties wanted to hear from him. And I think on the issue you raised, I think he definitely leaned more towards the narrative that the Democrats prefer, perhaps because we now have a Democratic president.
No, I think that's a good point, Mark. I mean, you look at somebody like J. Edgar Hoover. He started the Bureau, ran the Bureau for 40, 50 years, something like that. He had his own agenda. That's certainly been proven over time. But he wasn't. I mean, this was so partisan yesterday. I could not believe that he would not call what happened over the summer domestic terrorism as well.
To Mark's point, I mean, and I don't want to jump over other people, but remember, it was found that while Christopher Wray headed up the FBI, they withheld exculpatory evidence in the Michael Flynn case. They didn't want anything that made them look bad. So you got to keep in mind when Wray is talking about what he knows and to just trust him at face value without presenting the data, why that might be problematic, not for just members of Congress, but the American people.
Let me play, Emerald, let me play the soundbite. I just want to get us on the same page when it comes to Brian Sicknick and what Chris Wray had to say. Take a listen. This is him talking about the cause of death with Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick.
Have you determined the exact cause of death? And is there a homicide investigation?
So I'll take the last part of your question first. There is an ongoing investigation into his death. I have to be careful at this age, because it's ongoing, not to get out in front of it.
Amanda, you're an attorney. That seemed like a lot of political talk there. 2 months after this happened, I think the American people deserve to know what happened to this poor young officer. He was in his early 40s, I believe.
It's just shocking that we still don't know. This is probably the biggest question. I mean, we've all been talking about the Capitol Police officer that died that day. So what happened? And he still doesn't have any answers. It was very political. I think it went way too deep into demographic issues and really racial lines that I had not really ever seen in a hearing like this. I mean, the topic really wasn't covered. And I have said this multiple times. What did Speaker Pelosi know? When did she know it? And what happened? Where was the failure in leadership? Where was the failure in communication between the agencies? Because if they had known this was going to happen, would they really have let Pence go into the fire like this? It just seems like there's a lot of unanswered questions still, and he didn't really provide any solid answers, in my opinion. But again, going back to Stephen Sund, the former Capitol Police chief, who asked 6 times prior to January 6th for National Guard troops and was denied. What was known then, and what was Nancy Pelosi and leadership's role in this?
Yeah, that's a great point, Amanda. Chris, I want to bring you in. This is how the coronavirus is going to come to an end. Take a listen. This is what Greg Abbott, the Republican governor of Texas, who's had a couple bad weeks, this is what he's saying now about the future of mask wearing in the Lone Star State. Take a listen.
Effective next Wednesday, all businesses of any type are allowed to open 100%. Also, I am ending the statewide mask mandate.
Chris, you're in the Midwest. I know a lot of states there are considering very similar orders. Is this how the coronavirus finally comes to an end? People get vaccinated and governors like the governor of Texas and Mississippi take bold steps?
I think that's exactly how it comes to an end. Look, we've got 3 vaccinations now. Vaccinations are starting to get into people's arms. I think if you look at Florida and Governor DeSantis, you look at the great job that he did keeping the economy open, that people are going to shops or going to stores, doing what they need to do to keep the economy going. Look, with the Democrats' new gas plan or fossil fuel plan, I think it's very important that Texas gets its economy open and gets it growing, because I think with the Democrats' new plan on fossil fuels and green energy is going to affect the Texas economy negatively.
Yeah, and by the way, Chris, I know you have some family down in, I believe, Tyler, Texas. Have you talked to any of your family members down there? Are they excited about this, or is there any apprehension?
Yeah, they are excited about it. They're ready to get back to normal life. They're seeing Florida and they're seeing other states that are open, and they know that, they're tired of getting government checks and things of that nature, that people want to get back to work and get back to a normal life as safely as possible.
Mark, is this something that you expect? I mean, I was surprised that Ron DeSantis in Florida, granted, Florida's essentially been open since August, as we know. I know you were just down there for CPAC, but now Ron DeSantis has got to play catch up, because Mississippi and Texas, they're saying, nope, we're done with the masks, we're done with the closures.
Now, all along, we've had trouble getting the best possible data to make smart public policy decisions, but it's pretty clear that states that have been more open haven't had a much worse incident rate than states that have been more closed. That's pretty clear. Is this premature? I think a lot of people will say it's a bit premature, because once government lets down its guard, I think a lot of people are going to let down their guard. Governor Abbott said otherwise, but I think that he certainly has the popular support in most of Texas. And I think with a little bit of luck, this is going to be the way a lot of states go quickly, and it's going to allow people to come back, and all the negative sides of the shutdowns will be washed away even before the vaccines are fully distributed.
Emerald, jump in.
I just think it's a little hard to make the case to Texans that they need to remain shut down and in lockdown mode and mask wearing when we now know that the Biden administration is releasing illegal immigrants into the interior of the United States via Texas, specifically Brownsville, Texas, who are testing positive for COVID. And then the citizens of Texas are, until yesterday, were expected to adhere to what was essentially put in place by the CDC on the guidelines. And I think as you're seeing what's happening at the southern border, and you're just going to have a hard time getting people to continue to buy into this.
Yeah, Mark, 3,000 or 4,000 people a day crossing that border right now.
Yeah, I get wanting to open the businesses back up. I think closing them down is going to turn out to have been one of the biggest public policy mistakes of all time. I don't get getting rid of the mask mandate right now. The science is pretty clear, and there's no reason why people can't make their own choices. But you're making a choice for other people when you don't wear a mask.
Well, no, I think what Governor Abbott done and the leaders in Mississippi as well is if you want to wear a mask and you're at Walmart, by all means, wear a mask. Wear a mask forever if you want. But if you don't want to wear a mask, it's no longer required.
But Rob, the science is pretty clear, which is you're not just wearing a mask to protect yourself. It's not just freedom for yourself. It's to protect other people. So I get, like I said, I get.
Wait a second. Hold on. Are you wearing a Dr. Fauci suit under there? Is that just a Mark suit? Unzip that. Hold on. We've got to leave it there.
The science is clear. Why not mandate masks in Texas for 2 more months until the vaccine's fully distributed?
We have to go. We're very tight on time. I want to give you a quick bit of science when it comes to the questions of the effectiveness of lockdowns. COVID cases as a percentage of population, 8.8% in the state of California and 8.3% in the state of Florida. The difference between those numbers, and Florida is less, by the way. Florida never locked down. California is still locked down. So the science goes both ways, I think, when it comes to this argument. But we can certainly pick it back up again at the top of the hour. Looking forward to that. Amanda, I see you smiling. I know you're in Florida, where it's been so nice for so long. All right, panel, thank you. We'll see you guys again at the top of the hour.